But the neat thing about that is your surface to 30,000 feet, 1 minute. So that's about as fast as any plane nowadays. But you got to watch a minute. Okay, tell me when a minute's okay. Okay, you're taking the runway, you hit the brakes, you plug in the afterburners, you're down there at about 2,500 feet, you pull it back up, 60-degree bank turn straight up, and then you raise your gear, raise your flaps, and then you turn your 0-degree lanyard off, so if you bail out, you don't go at 300 miles an hour. And then you look down, okay, you're going through 18,000 feet, you got to reset the altimeter, and then, okay, you're looking at all these gauges going every which way, and then, oh, you're getting close to 30,000. Oh my God. Slow up just a little bit. Okay, what you don't want to do is shove it over because you're going up, so you roll it over on its back so you get negative G's or positive G's. So you pull it out, and then you pull it out of afterburner, and you're looking around the Oklahoma landscape and everything like that. Lots of little lakes all over the place. And then you spot, there's somebody out there fishing in one of those little lakes. You pull that sucker over, pull it out of afterburner, and you start straight down. And you leave it at Mach 1, which is the good sound barrier. And if you leave it at Mach 1, the barrier is flat, so when it hits, it just, and so at about 5,000 feet, you kind of pull it out, and you rotate, watch it for a little bit, and all of a sudden, call, whoa! So it made his day. Okay. Then, after the T-38 and everything like that, formation flying was neat. You'd take off and everything like that, and you'd be up there flying every which way, and you'd wonder, why, hey, you start flying like this, and you're going to be flying right through that thing. But after T-38, it was time to pick your airplane you want to go to. And I was, I think, 13th, 12th or 13th in the class out of 45. And the single-seat fighters were the first ones to go. And then the multi-engines, and then at the end, the F.4s and the B-52s and all the other cruddy jobs. And so I put in by 105s and 100s and stuff like that. Well, a buddy of mine got the last 105. He was, I think, 11th or 12th in the class and everything like that. But he's also on the wall up the Vietnam wall. So the 105s weren't too good of aircraft to stay alive in. So ended up with the C-124, the old 4-engine prop job. And my first flight, well, went down to Tinker, and it took about 2 or 3 months to go through C-124s and everything like that. Then we got back to our first duty station was San Antonio, Kelly Air Force Base. And if you believe it, bought our first house. It was 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, all brick. It was about a year old or so, and it was $9,500. My payments were $79 a month, and I used to fly with this one captain and everything like that. He had a beautiful place, North San Antonio, but I couldn't believe he paid $150 a month for house payments. Just filthy rich. So first trip I had overseas was Beirut. And at that time, Beirut was fantastic. It was the Riviera of the Mediterranean. And you're sitting down there sucking away on your drinks and stuff like that. And I said, life couldn't get any better than this, you know. And that was for the ragheads, and the Christians were killing each other in Beirut. So after that, hit a few more trips over to Saigon and places like that, take them overseas. And about the 4th trip to Saigon and everything like that, we were going in there, landed late at nighttime, going over the mess hall. And of course, all the sidewalks over there were wooden plats, basically during the monsoons and everything like that. You had so much rain. And right beside the plats was these little gutters, cement gutters. And I'm looking, going along, and that's kind of weird looking, kind of red stuff. And well, right next to the mess hall was the morgue. So that's what was happening. So yeah, it was welcome to the real world. So basically, after about the fourth, fifth trip overseas, McNamara came out with a directive saying, we're not short of helicopter pilots. We've got all these transport pilots. We'll make them helicopter pilots. So they gave me another 4-year commitment I was shoved into, and off to Wichita Falls, which, if you could give the world an intimate, that would be the place. And so I was down there for about 3 or 4 months learning how to fly choppers. Started out the old H-19. When you have to climb in the window to get to the cockpit, that's pretty old airs too. And after the old H-19, I started flying the Jolly Greens. That was a sophisticated chopper at that time. And if you look at it, it's a refueling probe. You come in behind and plug it into a basket behind a C-130, and so you could go about any place you want. And let's see, okay. And so after my training there, went down to Destin, Florida for about a month or so, combat training. It was really a vacation. You'd be off for 5, 6 days, and then you go out for one flight and stuff like that. But my first duty station was Udorn, Thailand. And of course, stopped off in the Philippines first to go through jungle survival school. But that was kind of a joke. If I'd hit the survival schools before, but this one was fairly neat. You come in and they say, okay, tell me, if you don't eat, what happens? You get hungry. If you don't drink, you get thirsty. Okay, we won't tell you any of that stuff. We'll just show you how to survive. You don't have to. And so after about 4 or 5 days of teaching us all this stuff, then they put us out 2 at a time, and you'd go out there and there was trying to hide in the jungle and everything like that. Of course, the Greedo kids, they were the ones, it was their backyard, so you're out there hiding in their backyard. So got in there, and the bushes all around us, they'll never find us and everything like that. And after about 5 minutes, all of a sudden this little Greedo kid comes up. Want to say it, Miguel? Yeah, okay, here's some chips, and okay. So we drank some San Miguel and had fruit all night long. So it was a pretty decent day. So, okay, off to Thailand. Udorn is about in the middle of Thailand and everything like that. It was a big fighter base, and with that, we'd go up to the Lima sites, and with that, whenever somebody logged more takeoffs and landings, we'd go up and pick him up and bring him back. Most of the time, it was in Laos or Thailand or something like that. They were in good shape. Some of the times, if they got shot down in North Vietnam, then it was a big deal. But we only lost a couple of them. The rest of them were shot down in Laos. But you'd go out there'd be 2 choppers at a time, and then you'd have an escort of 4 A-1Es, which was the old prop, and those suckers put out a lot of ammo and stuff like that. And as far as mid-cap, you didn't really worry about mid-cap because you had all these fighter planes, and they'll just, hey, you guys need help down there? Yeah, we'll wait for you. And so you'd go down, pick them up, and bring them back home and stuff like that. So, but it was kind of boring because after about 4 or 5 weeks or so, I wasn't flying that many times. Then Air America came through and they said, hey, anybody want to volunteer to be a chopper pilot? And I said, hey, yeah, that'll give me something to do. So I decided, well, I'll switch over to fly choppers for a dip. And the old chopper was a H-43, and most of the time we were flying out of Nakampanam and Lima 6, and we'd be taking out the bullets and butter to the different villages around. Well, I was with them for about a month or so, and then they came back and they said, hey, we've got a mission tomorrow morning. Our troops and everything like that picked up an NBA general, and you'll need to go in and pick him up and stuff. So one of my buddies, me and him took off. They got each choppers, and we take off, and well, he goes in initially and picks up all the troops and everything like that. Well, he only made it about one ridge line over before he gets shot down. So we come in, pick up the rest of them, and take them back to the Lima site, and came back, and picked up what was remaining. And we made it about 6 ridge lines over before we got shot down. And I was in fairly not too good a shape, dinged up knee and stuff like that. And so I wasn't going to be walking any place. And the little mountain yardman over there, he's sitting over there smoking his pipe. And here, try some of this, Captain. Man, 6 days later, ended up in Singapore, tied to a chair. So I said, okay, and by then Air America didn't need us anymore because we'd shut down or eliminated 50% of their choppers. So they had plenty of chopper pilots then. So they put me back in the Air Force, sponged my medical records, and I didn't go back to Udorn though. No, went to Da Nang. There's another one that did. Okay, with the Da Nang, it stinks, basically. But our main mission was flying up to around Haiphong Harbor where the 7th Fleet was, I guess. And so if somebody gets shot down, we'd buzz across the coastline and everything like that. When we were up there, oh, here's a picture of me. Okay. Hey, if you ever look at that, I don't know, anybody have one of those grease guns? Yeah. And wish I'd have brought that sucker back with me. That'd probably been legal. Okay, at that time, the U.S. Forstall they caught on fire up there. Basically, they were ready to take off on a big bombing run and everything like that. Well, one plane shot the rockets off, hit this one. I mean, the whole deck was on fire with the bombs and everything like that. Yep, his rear seater didn't make it out. And so with that, and that's, at that time, the Navy only had the fire crew. After that, they changed, hey, everybody's a fireman. You gotta be and of course, with everything going off, those fire hoses weren't any good anyway. I mean, they just were sizzling. And it was about, I think, 3 or 4 decks below. If they'd have got to that, that'd have been the end of the ship right there. And we were going in, picking up the wounded and everything like that, and dropping them off at other ships and everything like that. So they were lucky to get that ship up and running. With that, came back to Da Nang, had a couple of other hairy missions and stuff like that, and one of them was over on Ho Chi Minh Trail, and somebody got shot down. We went in to pick him up, and as we went in, we got shot up and everything like that. And so they had about 2 or 3 other airplanes that got shot down and stuff like that. And our final mission to go in, pick him up and everything like that, 50 caliber opened up on us, and we lost our tail rotor. And in a chopper without a tail rotor, you're not in too good a shape. You're kind of spinning. But we noticed if you kept your airspeed up and an altitude and an attitude and everything like that, you could fly back to the Phnom. So we did, and we decided, who wants to bail out of this sucker? Because chances of maybe making it, okay. The only sucker was the paramedic. Of course, he's big in the parachute and scuba diving and all that stuff. He punches out. And we come down, found out that you could keep it at an airspeed up, and just before you touch down, you flip it out, and you were in good shape. So we disappointed a lot of people with their 9mm or 8mm cameras. They were waiting for us to go on evening news. Okay, with that, we were coming back from Haiphong Arbor once, and oh, there was a DFC ribbon I got for something, and the only thing I really wanted was the longevity one. We were coming back, and here's a Chinese junk. I mean, it was a nice one and everything like that. And so I said, well, we'll pop down, take some pictures of it and stuff like that. Well, the idiot shot at us, you know. Here's this big warship down there shooting us. So we pulled it up, brought the miniguns on one side and come back in and started hosing it down. Well, they all hop overboard and everything like that. And we pull up above them, and we got the good old flares about yay tall, and popped a couple of those and dropped them right down there. And I often thought at that time, because there was a pretty good fire going, if they were like when we were at Scouts singing Kumbaya around the campfire. So needless to say, we didn't count that as a kill. Okay, it was about time to go back to the big land of the big BX. And with that, I headed back to Ogden, Utah, flying the C-124s again. And it was fantastic because we'd take off, 10-day trip, you'd be back and be off for 20 days. So you could take the family up to Yellowstone, all over the place. Found out if you go to Yellowstone, you don't want to go after the last Labor Day weekend. The snow's a little bit higher. And you go out there and you take a picture of Old Faithful in a snowstorm. So with that, also with when we go down through, go across the pond and stuff like that, during peach season, I'd take a bunch of peaches, and they were dirt cheap. I'd say, okay, I'm going to Vietnam tomorrow. Oh yeah, here, take a bunch of them. I have about 20 baskets full of them, and I'd drop them off at Wake Island and different places like that. Well, when I came back through, like in the Philippines, they said, oh, you've been diverted to Bangkok, 36-hour turnaround. Okay. And then we got back to Honolulu, which I'd dropped off some peaches to them too. And they said, oh, okay, you've been diverted down to Christchurch, which was fantastic. So if you kind of bribe your way across, you're in great shape. Okay, after that, the old C-124s were slowly going into the boneyard, and they switched me over to the C-141 out at Norton Air Force Base. And so I was back to tinker for about another 2 to 3 months school. And I thought, great, now I could be a co-pilot, just sit over there and not do anything, raise the gear. And came back and had one trip across the pond back. Then you go in for your nice formal, hey, glad you're with us and everything like that. And by the way, you're an aircraft commander now. And I said, what happened to be a co-pilot? And then they looked at me. I didn't have 100 hours in the airplane yet. So all of a sudden well, they were desperate for pilots, that's why. So with that, came back, had a couple more trips and everything like that. And they said, okay, you could become an instructor pilot. I go, what? That's the one job you don't want as an instructor, because there's 2 guys up there trying to kill you. So with that, and but okay, became instructor and pilot, and then right after that, became a flight examiner. Now that's the job you want. You don't have to know anything. You just ask the one guy, okay, what's the airspeed of this? Okay, then you turn, is he right? So with that, had some fantastic trips with the old 141s, and also used to pick up the strawberries there in San Bernardino. And when you drop them off in Fairbanks, you're in good shape, because they were $1 a flat for strawberries in San Bernardino. And so you'd call up there and say, hey, could you get a hold of the clubs and tell them come over? I got, about 25 cases of strawberries here. okay. Well, that night, all the crew, when they go to the clubs, everything was free for them. So it was quite an experience. With also, let me see, okay, when I was in San Bernardino and stuff like that, I was kind of getting bored of what to do and became a stockbroker. But I only judged the high quality penny stocks, none of this low stuff. And so it was kind of fun to be a penny stockbroker. And the other thing, okay, candy. We had a Halloween, and kids ended up with all this candy, and I said, hey, I'm going to Nam in a day or so. Why don't I get the old wheelbarrow out and let them drag around a bunch of boxes? And they came back within about 10 or 15 minutes, boxes full of candy. You know, all the kids were off to school. The mother, yeah. So needless to say, took a bunch of candy over the Nam. A couple of things, 141s. You always see these honor flights and the coffins and everything aboard, nice flags on everything like that. No, when we were flying the 141s, basically it was pallets of coffins. And so it wasn't the real fancy stuff and everything like that. And I recall once had 4 or 5 pallets of the coffins and stuff like that. But usually when I was waiting to get the airplane up in shape and everything like that, on the coffin you got a little tube there, you take it off and it says who it was and how he was killed and everything. And I still remember this one kid, he was 20 years old, got killed in a bar fight. So you can imagine going back to mom, he was probably friendly fire or something like that. But I'd go and look at all these. And then I had a couple of Vietnamese sitting on my ramp in the 141. And it was always nice. You'd open up that thing and you'd jump back like those 2 Vietnamese. I mean, they didn't clear anything when they were leaving. But with that in mind, the 141 was getting kind of boring. So then they had down at Hanscom Field up by Boston, they had a slot for a reserve advisor flying back the old 124s again. So I said, okay, about time to go back to the old C-124s. So we moved up for about 9 months in the Boston area and everything like that. And didn't quite make all the arrangements yet. So all of a sudden they were shipping these 124s back to the boneyards. And there's the old boneyards, okay? And so I said, okay, about time to get out of that. But the only other place that was open was Anchorage. They still had C-124s up there, and I thought, hey, this is great. I'll go up to Anchorage and spend a little bit. That was my longest tour, was 4 years in Anchorage. And but we used to fly out to these remote sites, and like Sparabon was the side of a mountain. It was boxed in, so you had one way in and one way out. And it was a 4,000-foot runway, but of course you didn't have to worry about it because it was all uphill. And remember once went in there, and all of a sudden we were taking out a fire truck, no biggie. And so take off, go down the runway and split out and go across the valley and everything like that. And we're hitting METO power and think, this sucker's not flying too good. And of course we got a mountain range to go across before we get home, and we wouldn't climb. And finally called the loadmaster and said, hey, check on that, what's the weight of it? It was only something like 45,000 pounds, so no biggie. Then he calls back and he says, oh, it's full of water. No wonder we're not flying. So he's sitting, starts up the fire truck, opens the back door and hoses out. And we're finally starting to climb out. Okay. So after a few times flying the C-124s, I took it to the boneyard. And the next one was the Learjet T-39. It was a fantastic little airplane. Flew it out of Anchorage, and you'd fly 3 times a day. It was just passenger flight down to King Salmon, of course to Galena, or up to Fairbanks. And at that time, I worked in the command post there, and every once in a while I'd be up there and say, hey, I'm taking off and going down to King Salmon this afternoon and everything like that. And by the way, I may not have the IFF on. So I'd take down there and we'd take off and hit the ground, or right on the deck and everything like that, go out about 20, 30 miles, then pop up to about 40,000 feet. And then you sit there, okay, in about 12 minutes, we'll have some F.I.S.H right on the wings. And sure enough, of course, they couldn't get painted with the radar and everything like that. But that gave them something to do. So, okay, with that, they decided to go ahead and tear off my buttons and break my saber and boot me out of the Air Force. With that, moved down to Corpus Christi. Wanted some place where the sand is not cold and nice and wet and everything like that. So went back to MBA and at Texas A&I. With that, pay was pretty good. And I also played around with selling stocks, not stocks, but your insurance on the side. But a little bit different than the stock market. The stock market, you depend upon the greed of an individual. With the insurance company, you're relying upon the greed of the beneficiary. So a little bit different. And but after about 3 years or so, I decided to move back to Kansas City. The kids, of course, the first year they had to be bused over downtown. And all of a sudden, Deb comes back and she's getting straight A's. The kids getting straight A's. Well, none of them spoke English. So they were, for 1 year, completely worthless. And then the next year, we were supposed to go back to our local school. Well, they've changed it again. So I decided, well, it's about time to come back to Kansas City and start my uncle's old bug business. And how about that? Okay. That's why I ended up with the name F.I.S.H and Pest Control. But he'd been out of it about 5 or 6 years, died, and took it over. He didn't mind. And with all the guys working for me, they were independent contractors, no employees. So I had about 8 to 10 guys working for me, and at that time, we were pulling in probably $700,000 to $900,000 a year, and they all made good money, but they were all independent contractors and et cetera. And with that, it was kind of boring, so ended up with still in the pest control business, but had a farm up in north central Missouri. A buddy of mine was saying the farmer wants to sell it. And I said, okay, how much do you want for it? Well, it's a little over 600 acres, and he wanted 145 for it. And he was pulling 17 a year in CRP. And I thought, I might be able to swing that. So I decided to go ahead and buy it. And then at that time, I went ahead and built a house on it, used the kids' money, because I never did like them that well anyway. And with that, also, when I was up there, built a bunch of lakes all over the place. And one of them is about a 20-acre lake, and one's 25-acre lakes, and then a bunch of other little lakes all over the place. And also, oh, okay, the person that made me write this stupid autobiography, there she is right there. Let's hear it for Debbie. Hold it, no, that's not Debbie. Shelby. But she used to go up there when she was about 5 years old. And that's before I had a house and everything, just a trailer we lived in and stuff like that. And she was so proud because she could drive to the restaurant every morning up at the stockyard. She came in one time and she says, look, I drove all the way here, which is probably 10 miles to the stockyard. I only drove off the road 3 times. Great shape. But she loved it up there. I noticed once they'd come up with the family and stuff like that, and they said, okay, they'd stay over at the bread and breakfast next town over, and they came back, well, Shelby, let's go over, you can get a shower. No, I'm staying with Grandpa. What? Well, you don't have to get dressed. You're ready the next morning, ready to go. So, yes. Okay. With that in mind, I needed a little bit of extra, I'd say, motivation in the Air Force, and not the Air Force, but joined the National Guard down at Whiteman. That's where I ended up flying the Cobras. And so I spent about 13 years with the National Guard flying the Hueys and the Cobras. And Cobras are a lot of fun, you know. And it's, well, basically it's a weapon system. And your main purpose is to kill somebody and break something. It's kind of like my Tesla, but the main purpose there is to not break anything and not kill anybody. But spent 13 years in the Cobras and the Whiteman and the Hueys and stuff like that. And it was neat. It's kind of like a weekend aero club and everything like that with bullets. And with the Cobra, you had your Gatling gun. And it would shoot, I think, 6,000 rounds a minute. And with that, also, wherever the helmet was looking, you had a peep sight there. And I remember once we were down at Leonard Wood, going down and shooting up stuff down there, range and stuff like that, and a turkey buzzard took off. Wrong. He flew it up. Nothing but feathers. So, okay. Oh, I forgot to do that. Okay. Paddlefish. You ever gone down to snagged them down in Warsaw and stuff like that? Well, guy down in Warsaw would put paddlefish in your lake, and after about 10 years, he'd come out and drain them out and stuff like that, and you'd get 75 cents a pound for the males, $1.25 for females. What they wanted was a caviar, and it's a cheap man's caviar, so he'd come out there, and I said, hey, at that price, you know, they don't eat anything. They kind of flopping around with their wife, their mouth open, stuff like that. So, and they took out about $2,500 worth of caviar about 4 years ago. Then everything hit, and they've still got one lake they could do next year and get them out of there. So, yeah, it's pretty neat. Okay, now my last adventure was I opened a restaurant there in Ethel, Missouri, up by my farm, and I thought, hey, they started out, they went under and everything like that, and we're 600 people or 60 people in the town, you should be able to make it. Well, I decided to only open on Saturday and Friday nights. No menus, just 3 specials. And we would usually get about 75 to 80 people a night. And European setting, so, you just sit with somebody and that's it. And and if you're not doing it for a living, you can do anything you want. So it was a ball. But after about 7 years, I said, this is getting old because it was screwing up my weekend too much. So there for a while, I ran for sheriff there in Macon, Missouri. Only made 7 out of 2,500 people. Also applied for school superintendent. They didn't like my resume that much because I was going to have a woman take over 4 days a week because you can get them a lot cheaper. Oh. And so that didn't go over. So I got out of the sheriff business and also the superintendent business. And with that, all I do is now go up on weekends and screw around at the farm.
Ed, you got time for some questions? Ed, you have time for some questions?
Do you have time for some questions?
Oh, yeah. Not hard ones.
I just want to know what your favorite aircraft was and why.
Probably the Cobra, because it was quite versatile. You can get down the bushes, and if you're doing 120, 150 knots, you got some speed.
And lots of bullets?
Lots of bullets. If you're flying, if you're going someplace, the 141s, of course, there you're going overseas and everything like that. So, but go someplace in a chopper, no, you only go down maybe to Springfield, go down to Bass Pro or something like that. But one time with the chopper and everything like that, they just come back and the feds gave them some money for looking for marijuana plants. So they said, okay. So they gave us, hey, you can go out there and look for a bear plant. Great. Well, they didn't tell you what to do with them once you found them. So went out there, and I knew where the marijuana plants were, and down there in the lake and the islands down there, there's a couple of nice patches and everything. So we landed down there and kind of took the skid and kind of wiped them out a little bit. And then I pulled about 4 or 5 of the marijuana plants. They were not nice ones. Came back to wipe, drug them in across the ramp, and I said, hey, I got some marijuana here. Oh my God. You're not supposed to bring this stuff back. Why not? Well, they called the Air Force. Hey, they said, that's yours. Finally got the hold of the sheriff, and he came over and got it. But then the director came out. If you find them, just tell us where they're at. Don't bring any back with you. So I was going to bring back my neighbor. But but yeah, the Hueys, the Cobras are the best ones to fly. And but for going places, the 141s.
Back here in the back. Here you go.
Hey, could you sit down back there, boy?
You still fly? Do you still fly aircraft?
No. Basically, it's kind of like when you're 16 years old, you would have done anything to drive a car. But after about 10,000 hours of flying, no, it's point A to point B now. I looked into getting a ultralight, and most of those suckers were widow makers. So I said, nah. They had one that was nifty, but by the time I got around to it, the economy went south and they went under business. So it would have been a nice airplane to fly. But the rest of the time, no. And flying little airplanes, they scare me. Choppers, no, they didn't bother me. Yeah, oh well, okay. But yeah, this.
Any other questions for Ed? Well, Ed actually did take me flying yesterday. Ed was on the radio, 106.5 The Wolf. And I walked outside, and he starts getting in this car. It's a Tesla. And I said, I've never been in a Tesla. He says, well, come on, let's go. And I started getting the passenger seat. He said, no, you're driving. And has anyone ever been in a Tesla, driven a Tesla? It's crazy. He said, okay, when we come to the stop sign, I want you to floor it. I could feel the G's. So this man is still flying to this day. So Ed, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Let's give Ed a round of applause. And we have one more thing here for you, Ed. And this is compliments of another Vietnam veteran, Doc Puska, but that's called The Wall. So thank you once again, Ed.
By the way,
Yes.
okay, by the way, got a lot of bargains there. None of you read it. Thank God you, unless you got sleeping problems, that's the best one. Okay, donation, put your donation in to the fish and everything like that, but it's entertaining. It's not one of these Vietnam books that goes around on, but it's kind of, yeah.
Thank you, Ed. If you want to buy one of the books, donate. There'll be a donation box right here. But before we all take off and start doing the raffle, I want my friend Stephanie to come up here. Stephanie's with the VA, and she wanted to make a quick announcement on the PAC Act, what's going on there.
Okay, really quick, I just wanted to share, as Paul said, my name's Stephanie Tully-Fusen. I'm a Gold Star widow that works at VA, and they love to hate me every day because I am like we have lots of problems in VA, but we also are learning to do good. So I'm the squeaky wheel. Ran into Paul. Paul said, hey, come to F.I.S.H. So last month was my first meeting. But I just wanted to share with you guys, we're actually coming here to American Legion next month and doing a PACT Act town hall. Oh, well, so there's flyers on it back on the table, but we are going to be here April 25th from 2 to 4:30, have staff from VBA to file disability claims. We're going to be doing toxic exposure screenings, answering all kinds of questions on all things PACT Act. A lot of veterans aren't familiar that March 5th they did another expansion, so any veteran with what we're calling it Toxic TERA, because everything in VA is a whole lot of acronyms. TERA is toxic exposure related activity. So all veterans toxic exposure related activity are now eligible for VA benefits. So that just happened March 5th. So we're trying to educate everybody. So that flyer is back on the table. And then there's also this sheet that tells you about the changes that just happened March 5th. So come out, let everybody know. We will have tons of staff here from VA for like I said, disability claims, toxic exposure, mental health, whole health, all the screenings. So.
All right, last call for everyone for tickets. Did every one of our veterans get tickets? No, yep, there's one. Anyone else?